On this episode of the podcast, I have with me Vinod Ramachandran, who's the CEO and co-founder of Big Sur, and I have with me Arnaud Weber, who's a co-founder and CTO at Big Sur AI. We're going to be talking about how AI is making an impact within the landscape of shopping, e-commerce, to allow smaller brands to compete with bigger brands. And we're going to be talking about personalized shopping. We're going to be talking about adopting AI agents. We're going to talk about the future of AI and e-commerce. It's a whole lot of areas we're hoping to cover with you guys here. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having us, Amir.
Absolutely. Before we start, could you tell us what Big Sur AI does?
So at Big Sur AI, we are helping retailers and brands significantly improve their online sales with the help of our AI sales agent platform. So as you may know, like the online shopping experience has been kind of stagnant for several years now. Now with the power of AI, we are empowering our retailers and brands to be able to create a truly assistive and personalized shopping experience for each one of their online visitors. So this not only improves the consumer experience, but leads to significant increase in their sales. That's what we are helping brands and retailers achieve.
Totally. High-level AI offers a huge opportunity for merchants to simply sell more efficiently, sell more products, and also offer a better experience for their consumers.
Fantastic. I mean, it's got to be a great space to be. Obviously, we have now a couple of decades of e-commerce under us. When you are looking at the e-commerce landscape and you're looking at how consumer sentiments have changed when it comes to online shopping, are there any emerging trends that you've observed over the last couple of years that are kind of shaping your insights?
Totally. And I think, it starts with consumers using large-scale search engines like Google or Bing or others, which more and more are offering answers instead of offering 12 blue links and basically letting you do all the research. Consumers are trained to get a really nice answer, and they start to expect that answers absolutely everywhere. What's really interesting and where we are at Big Sur AI is that this desire to get answer is an opportunity to sell and offer the right product to the right person at the right time, whether it's paid traffic or organic.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, users are going to look for the easiest way to decide what they want to buy. And AI is kind of like beginning to offer that in other places. And certainly when they come to the brand's website, users would expect the same. And that's what we are trying to deliver.
I guess something interesting that with ChatGPT that's come about is consumers are becoming more comfortable with asking a question and getting a single response back. So a little bit different than typical search engines where you go through a page of search. We're seeing people look at one answer and go, oh, okay, I'm going to take that as gospel. That works for me. I guess that's interesting because that's contrary to how we've done it, where we're used to looking at 5, 6, 10, 15 pages to assemble what we think is our own truth versus going, I'll take what the device is telling me or ChatGPT. How does that come into play when you're looking at consumer online shopping behavior? Does it impact at all?
Yeah, so I think the same thing that you just described with search engines, right? Like applies to shopping as well. So imagine like a really awesome shopping experience and how that would be in the physical world today, right? Like so, for example, let's say you set up an appointment with a salesperson at a high-end retail store. Like a beautiful clienteling experience. You set up a phone appointment and then you walk into the store. That person is not going to kind of like show you, hey, here are 1,000 products in our store, go browse and, come back to me with any questions, right? They've already kind of know about you a little bit based on your previous conversation. They're able to curate a set of recommendations. They give you enough choices to kind of explore the space, but it's not like sort of overwhelming number of choices. And then based on any questions you might have about those choices, then you can narrow down and sort of get that perfect recommendation for yourself. So this type of experience, like, at the end of the day, what users want to get to is the right product, not necessarily like, browsing through hundreds of choices and getting overwhelmed and going back and forth. And this is one of the reasons why, many retailers today are, people are abandoning their sites because once the user is on their site, there is not much assistance to be had. And so this is why, like with AI, we can actually bring that type of that clienteling experience directly onto their online stores. And so we see this, working really well for both our retailers and consumers.
Totally. Just to add, the other thing is that the system does not only answer questions, it's really selling, and it's also offering some prompt to the user, which could be the next step of the conversation. These prompts are optimized for conversion for the merchant, but they're also optimized for discovery. So let me give you an example. Suppose that you're shopping for an electric bicycle, and you don't know how long it's going to take to charge that bicycle, and other shoppers have asked that question. That prompt will show up on reaching the shopping journey, basically.
I guess, and I do know experiences, I hear a lot of, you guys are mentioning experience and understanding the consumer intent. When you're looking at, obviously going to Google, going to search engines, putting in a search term, there's tons of results come up. And then you're looking at individual smaller merchants that necessarily might not come through within those channels, right? And you're looking at giving them the tools and abilities to compete with the larger e-commerce stores, the larger brick and mortars who have e-commerce and name brand. When it comes to a solution that helps them cut through some of that noise, what are the tools that allow that to happen?
Yeah, I think, one of the key sort of things that we're doing here, Amir, is that we are helping brands and retailers, particularly, as you said, like smaller and mid-sized brands, focus on things that they can control the most, which is their own website. So if you look at the reality, right, like, we all know that you have to be on Google and Meta advertising, spending money to drive traffic to your store, right? And for many stores or many brands, this is kind of like an unsustainable thing. They are already spending a big proportion of their revenue on ads. And even when they bring net new traffic, only like 2% of those users are converting, right? You spend all that money to drive clicks to your store, but like 98 out of 100 people walked out of the store without buying anything. So traditionally, there's been a lot of optimization that's obviously been done on the ad side of the, equation. But once the user is in your store, we are helping these brands. Can we convert more of those users into your active purchasers and build an affinity towards your brand? Right? If you do that well, then it means all your channels are suddenly becoming more effective. You don't have to spend as much money on ads because now you're, improving the efficiency of that spend. Any user you are bringing to your site, whether organically or not, is able to convert better, and therefore there's a more return propensity to that store, right? And so that's what we are trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that think of a custom AI for a merchant, which is driven by a set of machine learning models, which are making sure that the probability of conversion is higher. We do things like understanding topics conducive of conversions, conducive of abandonment, and suggesting those topics to the consumer, as well as driving the AI to mention those topics automatically. I mean, I think we can share, we typically see a lift measured through A/B tests between 5 and 15%. And we're just getting started. We believe we can get much higher than that. As I said earlier, the fact that consumers expect answer is an opportunity for selling.
And I guess something that's really maybe interesting based on that, and I don't know if this is relevant or not, but you guys actually, you have a platform. You're assisting these smaller and mid-sized brands leverage their own website, given the capabilities that typically we see at larger companies. And I don't know if the platform allows understanding across channels, but is there a component to this for companies to understand a larger part of demographics outside of their world? Obviously, the reason I'm asking is when you go to the super large websites, you go to Amazon, they have so many products that by the time you're finished going through their site, they know tons more about you because you've clicked on a variety of things. They can suggest different things. Is there power in knowing breadth as well for these consumers? And is there a way of delivering that to them? Or really is it a niche and depth to their particular product is really the only thing that matters for them as retailers?
Our current assumption, and in fact, one of our rules is that the models we develop are sandbox. All the data and all the models we develop for our clients are all sandbox. And the reason why they're sandbox is that we don't want a direct or transitive propagation of knowledge between store ever. And the reason why we care so much about this is because we never want one of our clients to help one of their competitors by, directly or transitively through our data, right? And so this is really what we're focusing on. However, down the road, you can imagine that there could be incentive throughout, across multiple brands to share data so we can have a better model for the consumer and be more effective at selling. This said, there are some things in the ad industry called lookalike models that are not exactly tracking people, but can identify when people have similar behavior. And, we can definitely use that without getting to that level of sophistication.
Yeah, the way to understand our platform, Amir, is that it's as if the brand or the retailers hired an army of salespeople, and they have trained that salespeople to be the best possible version with all the data that they have and they can provide, right? And so, we are creating that for the brand, and that's why, the integrity of the data and the learnings from the system that can benefit the brand continuously is what we are focused on. So that's why we don't want their competitors to benefit from them or vice versa. So it's as if they have hired this army of salespeople. And certainly, the meta, like you were saying, the meta search engines like Google and others are going to create this sort of comparison shopping experiences, right? I worked on Google Shopping before, so certainly, there is a place for that. But then once the user comes to your brand's website, you need to kind of provide that, sort of unique, personalized experience. It's all about enriching whether the users understand your brand's offerings or not.
Absolutely. No, I like that. I guess when it comes to, obviously an army of sales agents being able to help a customer, help them with the best experience they have. Obviously, a lot of times we've seen people, whether it was phone or chat bots, not necessarily have the best experience. What are you seeing in terms of companies adopting those type of solutions and having a more seamless experience so that it doesn't feel impersonal either?
Yeah, pretty significant actually. So let me share a few things. If you carefully noticed, we don't use the word chatbot.
Yes, I noticed we've not said it in a while, but I said it, so I'm sorry if I.
Yeah, and the reason is that, like you said, right, traditionally there has been sort of a negative connotation with chatbots because these are the things that exist on the bottom, right? Before the AI world, they don't really used to work. It's very rigid and so on and so forth. That world is changing very rapidly, right? And so obviously, a lot of retailers are adopting AI solutions. The obvious use case that we all know about is the customer service use case, where you have a problem with your order. Instead of talking to a customer service agent, a lot of questions are being handled by AI. But much less known, it's the solutions like us that are focused on the product discovery. How do you get users to discover the right products when they come to your store? There are a lot more brands now that are actively adopting these solutions. In our view, the future is that the AI agents like ours will replace traditional websites as we know them today. Right? So when you walk into a store, no two users should even be seeing the same website. If we know some information about them, about their intent, we should be able to create and generate content that's perfect for them at that moment, right? That's the beginning of this truly AI agent experience that's built for you. And so we are seeing a lot more merchants now beginning to adopt sort of the product discovery side, but it doesn't stop there, right? I think the future is, you can think of every function within a retailer, not just sales and sort of customer service, but like marketing, inventory planning, even product design. In all of these places, companies are building AI agents that are going to help each of these functions, perform even better. And so that's kind of the shift that we are already seeing in many of our conversations. Even if they have not already adopted some solution, they're certainly thinking about it for 2025, right? There are teams that are actively creating RFPs and putting together their 2025 plans, where clearly adoption of these AI agents is at least part of their plans.
And Amir, just just to be clear, like this is not like the future in a few years. We are on this transition to go from static web to fully static web, fully dynamic web, optimized, for each consumer, etc. Right? And so we have this agent, but we also inject content throughout the site, and all these injections are optimized for conversions. And just recently, we started to generate hundreds of landing pages entirely automatically, based on what consumers are asking the agent. So that way, we believe that this will drive SEO traffic to those brands. And we're going to continue on that path to go towards the vision of the fully dynamic agentic web.
I mean, that's remarkable. I think as you're kind of talking about being able to dynamically, no two websites should be the same. I think that's going to become, I think, ever more important. I guess the one question, and maybe I hadn't mentioned this, but I am kind of curious. When you look at that and you look at the process of generating these websites on the fly within the AI itself, what kind of safeguards are there? Because obviously, dynamic real time, we're seeing LLMs, they're still trying to figure some things out. We see some of the hallucinations. When it comes to focusing on a much more defined vertical, does that make your job easier to minimize any of those type of issues because you're focusing on a more narrow playing field?
So hallucinations will always be there with LLMs, at least the way LLMs are structured today. And basically, mitigation of hallucination is a necessary condition for success for companies like us. And there are several ways to mitigate these hallucinations. I can go over them very briefly. One of them is prompt engineering, and making sure that you never push an LLM in a corner where it has to make something up. There needs to be a path there that says, hey, if you don't know, just say you don't know, right? The other thing that we do, which is very important, is, as I'm sure many of your listeners know, LLM are like these systems are based on zero-shot learning. And basically, zero-shot learning uses a context, which is provided to the LLM to answer questions. What we do and what can be done is to systematically compare the result, so the semantic in the results, with what's in the context, and assume that anything which is not part of the context is an hallucination. And by doing that, it's possible to automatically catch those hallucinations and mitigate them. And then there are other techniques which are a little more advanced.
Yeah, we care about one more thing I would add here is we also have humans in the loop to detect issues with our responses and make sure that our system kind of like it's fed back into the system. So it's a multi-pronged approach to solving hallucinations, because at the end of the day, the accuracy of the answers ultimately leads to the trust between the consumers and the brand. So we care about this like really deeply, and so we have like multiple guardrails in place in addition to the human in the loop approach.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess a question about the human in the loop. Obviously, you're working with retailers. When it comes to change management on their side to get used to AI agents and making these dynamic changes, looking for the optimal website, looking for the optimal customer experience, the human in the loop is there for now. As the system grows, what do you think that turns into? I know we're putting the crystal ball out there, but is there a world where human in the loop fades away? There's more trust. There's a higher probability of success, and people start dropping that. Or do you envision human in the loop as something that's going to be around for a little bit of while in these type of solutions?
I'll go first, and Arnaud, feel free to add. Right? I mean, I think there are one of the sort of the biggest advantages I would say of moving in this direction is that it actually frees up the merchant's time so that they can focus more on the data about what products they are selling and what new products that they should be building and selling, right? And so it removes the work that's needed on, hey, how should this be presented on a website? Like what format of data should I use? And, all of that kind of stuff, it takes the, burden away so that they can really focus on what they are close to and what their true strengths are, right? And so to me, like it's almost like a big relief and, liberation if you think about it a few years from now. And then once they create high quality data, then how do we translate that high quality data into these personalized experiences? And that's where our AI system is doing that kind of translation, right? And it's building out those unique experiences. And while we have humans in the loop now, we expect as the models evolve, the need for sort of like at least the frequency of hallucinations will go down. The need for more humans to be in the loop will hopefully go down. But I think that the key piece is that the merchants can actually now focus on what they care about the most, which is about their products and building high quality data. So even when we work with them today, we actually give them a lot of controls. They have full access to all the conversations that are happening. They can tune a number of things. They can override certain responses if they don't like it. So they can do all of these things. But eventually, we think that the need for doing that should kind of reduce over time, and they can focus more on their products.
I guess to lead into that, I didn't know if I would have a good opportunity to ask this question, but I think it's a good time as you were talking about the future and the human in the loop. It's obviously optimizing the time, going to those higher touch, more value areas. There's a lot of talk, obviously, of AI eliminating jobs. And I think we've also can look at history and look at the studies of, with a lot of different impacts of society, we've shifted and we've been fluid and we've moved into other areas and other jobs have been created. I guess both of you or one of you, either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, do we potentially see AI eliminating jobs and increasing them in other ways? Will we see a net loss? Just kind of your thoughts on AI and jobs potentially.
I mean, I can speak to what we do, and sort of I'm a true optimist in this, right? So if you look at like what we are doing, we are producing AI solutions where humans did not exist before to solve these problems. Like today, you can't go to an e-commerce site and have every visitor be assisted with a human agent, right? Like this did not exist. It's prohibitively expensive. So we are sort of using AI to fill those spaces that humans were not available earlier to do, and thereby also kind of like help merchants be more successful. The other set of things that we are doing as we build out like AI agents for other functions like marketing and so on is we are trying to make the workflows for these teams to be much faster. It all goes back to our sort of the primary motivation, which is how can smaller and mid-sized businesses have the same technology that only largest companies can have in terms of like resources, in terms of number of people? Can they still do it with the fewest number of people that they have, but have because of the access to the technology, right? So let's say, for example, we are helping build out like as Arnaud said, like landing pages and sort of the AI content marketing, right? In order to produce high quality content, even to produce like let's say a single page of content sometimes takes like multiple days for a merchant, right? They don't have the, mid-sized merchants don't have the people to be able to produce this thing. Now we are giving that type of technology to it. And what that should ultimately result is that there are more businesses who would be more successful, which should in fact create more jobs and not less jobs, right? That is my true belief in this, that yes, the type of skill set that's needed to succeed will shift and change. But in terms of like the job creation opportunities itself, if we do this right, we can create many more successful businesses that should lead to more job creation.
Just to add a little bit, my belief is AI is going to allow humans to work at a higher level of abstraction and be far more productive. But when you think about it, so will their competitors. And so the same team would just be, far more sophisticated in selling, merchandising, marketing, and the jobs will change. But job elimination is hard to believe because there will still be this arm race to beat their competitors.
I think, yeah, obviously, I agree with both of you. I'm an optimist. I think we'll see uplifts, and we just can't envision it because as humans, we can't see it yet until we're a little bit closer. I guess a question to ask you back to helping these smaller mid-sized brands compete with larger brands. If the technology is evolving, obviously you're giving those companies tools that they might not have access to. As you mentioned, they may not be able to roll out more than 1 or 2 website changes a month because they just don't have the bandwidth or the capabilities. When you're looking at the larger brands out there and what they adopt and how they evolve, will they be able to take advantage of similar technologies, or given the fact they're bigger, will there be a different path forward? Because and the reason I'm asking is, if you do see smaller companies adopting this, how do you stay ahead if the larger ones start looking at similar technologies?
I mean, the larger ones are looking at it, right? Like, so to put it kind of very simply, right? Our AI sales agent platform is like the Rufus plus plus that Amazon has, that they have built in-house, that we have brought to the rest of the world. I always say that, like, any technology disruption, it's usually skewed towards the largest players, right? Like, because they have the resources to quickly explore and exploit the technology to build solutions for themselves faster than anybody else. And so this is why, there is no question that the largest customers and largest brands are actually going to build more of these things. The real question is, are there companies like us with the same motivation of bringing the best in technology and making it easily accessible to the rest of the world? It's not like the technology is not available for the rest of the world, but how do you make it accessible? How do you make it actually work in their business environment to create business impact? That translation needs to happen, right? And that's what we are trying to kind of like produce. So like our hope is that, like, the effect of our work and people like us kind of slowly bridges the gap between them, and so that they kind of like can compete more on a level playing field going forward.
I like it. I guess if we're going to take a final question and kind of round the episode out, when we're looking at AI and the future of AI and e-commerce, obviously these technologies are accelerating. We're seeing lots of spend, lots of attention. Where does once we go through it and the website can be dynamic and everybody has their own unique experience coming in, where do we go from there? I don't know if the crystal ball, if the roadmap has gone that far. I don't want you to share any secrets, but just general industry, like where do we go once we really have customized things down to like the levels you guys are talking about?
I think the first thing that will happen is a multi-modal experience where the agent can see you if you want, see your screen if you want, and you're able to say, hey, I'm looking for, I don't know, a shirt to go with this outfit or something like that. And it's a completely seamless, real-time experience, just like you would at a physical store. I mean, that I think is in the card. The other thing is that I think AI will become a non-event. Everybody's going to be used to it and simply interact with machine like they would in the physical world, and not even think about it anymore.
Absolutely spot on. I think the one more thing that I would say is, Amir, as I mentioned, like, we see in the retail world, the AI agents kind of like helping not just the sales part, but like all the other teams within the retailer as well, right? So once you have this type of like highly tailored experiences, what you can do is you can take those, and not only you can experience the brand through this AI agent on their own website, but across every consumer touch point, right? Like we've seen retailers talk about, how do we bring this to in-store kiosks on their brick and mortar stores, right? How could these experiences help the salespeople inside of brick and mortar store? Even in the future, I think it's quite possible that when you look at an ad from a brand, you might be able to interact with the AI agent of the brand inside the ad itself. So you're actually, every touch point becomes like a live experience with the brand, rather than today's version, which is like a kind of static snapshot that you're seeing, right? And I think that's where I feel like in the next maybe a year or two, we would start seeing some of those experiences pan out.
Awesome. Lots of moving parts, lots of exciting times, especially if you're a small, mid-sized retailer. I think everything you guys have described seems like, giving an advantage to them to compete with bigger players. If somebody wants to learn a little bit more, what's a good way of doing that?
Definitely reach out to us either through our website, bigsir.ai, or through LinkedIn, or you can send me an email directly at vinod@bigsir.ai. We'd be happy to chat with you and see how we can help.
Awesome. Again, thanks for both of you being on this show. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. It was fantastic.
It was a pleasure, Amir.
All right. That's it for the episode. Be back again. Different guest, different topic. Until then, two things. One, I think talking about the future of e-commerce, about AI agents, talking about how these smaller brands are going to compete with larger brands. I think we learned a lot about how those capabilities are shaping up, what Big Sur AI is working on. Share this with somebody else who might find it interesting. I think it's obviously food for thought and a lot of moving parts, and it's happening quickly. So please do that. Also, like, subscribe, comment. Let me know how the podcast is going for you. Thank you. Until next time. Goodbye.